welcome to the Tanisha Ali channel. Okay, I'm Tanisha Ali, and we're here to talk about your locks. It could be beauty tips or any type of potpourri. Today we're talking about hair loss due to sister locks. Now, this is the second video in the more recent past. Everybody say hi to Ronnie. This is the second video in the more recent past that I've done on this topic, and I really want to explore more about this because I don't think it's talked about enough. And I know for sure there's nothing about it on the Sisterlocks website. And I think for those of us who chose this as a lifestyle, it's something we need to really start to give some consideration to. And it doesn't matter where you are on your journey. If you're new to getting Sisterlocks, if you're considering getting Sisterlocks, if you have had them for 5 years, 10 years, or if you're a veteran, over 10 years. This is something that we have to bring to the table as worthy of dialogue, because if you don't do it, then we can't begin to change the culture around Sisterlocks, and we can't begin to demand more of those people that we entrust our hair to. And there's no way under the sun that I could be the Sisterlockers poster child, or the inventor, or the whatever you want to call the lovely individual, Miss Cornwell, and not be addressing this as a topic. She may have not experienced any thinning of her locks because of the care and concern that she uses around it, but this is definitely an issue for people that have had their locks for a short amount of time, and for those of us who've had them for a long period of time. I'm not experiencing any thinning right now. Okay, I'm going to do everything that I can so that this does not happen, but I know based on what I currently do that I'm going to have to start to make some changes if I too don't want to end up in a situation where I start experiencing hair loss. And we're going to talk more about that. So if this seems like a video that you can learn something new, or if it seems like a video that you can add something to the discussion, please feel free. Definitely like, subscribe. I want you to comment. I want you to tell me what your experience has been with Sisterlocks. If you have experienced any thinning, any loss of hair, any balding. I'm not talking about losing hair from the tips because you dyed your hair. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about locks falling out by the tens, locks falling out in a particular area. I'm talking about anything that you have not identified as traditional alopecia, and I forget the name of it. I'm going to be doing more research, but there's a particular type of alopecia that has a classic look. There's a particular pattern in which the balding and the hair loss starts to take. It also attacks other areas of hair, whether it be your eyebrows or some other place. When our locks start to fall out, or when your hair starts to thin, and your hair is not thinning anywhere else, or it's not thinning in a patterned way across your head, and your hair is growing back while the locks are falling out, that's a problem with your Sisterlocks. And as I do more research, I want to be able to bring to you what could be a Sisterlocks issue and something that you need to seriously take a look at. Because I don't think that for the length of time that this hair style has been around, that this shouldn't be a topic up for discussion. In the same way that people who have traditional locks do various things in terms of their hair care regimen that either contribute to the hair growth or the lack thereof, why would we be any different? Why shouldn't there be certain red flags and habits and practices that we need to pay attention to if we're trying to grow our hair? By the time your hair starts to get really long, regardless of where you start in your journey with these Sisterlocks, to have locks start to fall out and to have to start the journey all over again, that's serious. I have a few sisters over the course of doing these videos who I'm going to share with you, who are a part of our Sisterlocks community, who've been kind enough to show pictures of the hair loss that they have experienced. All right. Now, Usually when we start experiencing hair loss, we can see dermatologists and so forth and so on, and they have ways of assessing if we're dealing with alopecia or whatever it may be. Remember, also some people speak about alopecia in terms of the type of alopecia that can happen when your hair has been damaged or traumatized by certain styling techniques and hair care practices. That's where kind of we can fall in. But I don't want to get into the technicalities of what it's called. What I want you to consider and put on the table is, what are the things that we need to do as sister lockers in the community to bring and shine the light of awareness on this and make our locticians not only accountable, but privy to the fact that this is an increasing problem. And the reason why I want us to begin to start the dialogue about this is because by the time you start losing the hair and it starts falling out, you're done. It's going to be very difficult to try to arrest the situation. Why? Because it's everything you did up to the hair falling out or the hair loss that puts you in a place that has started the progression of the hair loss, and a certain amount is going to have to come out. It's just like anything else you do when you start losing your hair. A certain amount is going to come out, and then it then ceases, and then eventually you can start to grow your hair back, right? But whatever the hair loss is that begins, it has to run its course. And while it's running its course, you're losing not from here to here. You're losing locks, and they're falling out by the tens, all right? Over a period of time, after which you can eventually lose all of your locks or lose locks in particular places that may be high traffic areas or high trauma areas. So this is something we have to really take a look at. I want you to take a look at these pictures that I'm putting up that show some of the sisters in our community and the type of hair loss that has happened. Now, if you take a look at one of the sisters, the first one that you see, she's had her hair locked for 18 years. She spoke of some dyeing, but she spoke of, and you can see what has happened over a period of 18 years while going to the same loctician consultant and getting her locks done, I believe she said every 7 to 8 weeks. You can take a look at how long her hair was and what it looked like to where she is now in starting her journey over. I met this sister because she purchased my Miracle Grow hair oil in an effort to try to help get her hair back healthy again and to help grow it and give the hair the nutritive ingredients that it needs to hopefully bounce back. Which, by the way, if you're interested in, just click on my information in the description, or you can text me at 678-438-6442 and we can discuss what you need to do in order to order it. But if you take a look at these pictures from both of the sisters, you see people that had long hair, long flowing hair, abundant, like mine. Now, I've had mine, you know, about 9 years, right? Do I think I'm out of the woods? By no stretch of the imagination. Y'all know I've been using my Miracle Grow stuff for what, over 9 years now. Probably, let's see, I'm about 9 years and 4 months, probably 8 years, 8 3/4 years. I recognize the value of keeping my hair healthy. But what I also realize is that even with my own journey, I've experienced more stress on my locks than I needed to have experienced because of a few factors that I feel we need to start to discuss. If we don't start discussing this with our locticians, then it's never going to come up. And by the time your hair starts to fall out, nobody, your loctician in particular, is not going to want to take responsibility for what may have contributed to the loss of your hair. And not everybody is getting their hair colored. Now, when I got my hair colored, when I colored my hair, not got it colored, any breakage or weakness that I experienced happened in the strands, like it always did when I got my hair colored before I even started locking my hair. When I used to color my permed hair, and my hair would break on the ends or thin out or get dry, I experienced breakage from here. The only time I experienced breakage up here is when I did the henna and the color within days of each other. Henna is not, it's natural, but it still changes the ionic structure of your hair. So you can't just use that with chemicals and expect to be okay. At that time, my hair fell out. And it started like long pieces would fall, and my hair just really started to break. It broke up to probably the stronger hair. This part to here was a lot stronger because this is new growth. So let's say my strands began to fall out, and eventually I just cut all my hair because it was too traumatic to just keep watching it fall out as I ran my hands through it. The point that I'm trying to make is that to act like somebody has inherited alopecia or that some other cause other than the tension that's been put on the locks and the styling stress and the frequency of the retightenings is the cause for the hair loss is to not be willing to take a closer look at what else may be going on in the routine maintenance of these locks that could be causing a problem. This is all of our concern. Whether you're considering getting these locks, if you're considering getting these locks, you need to be asking the loctician consultant, what do you think is the cause of the women who are experiencing excessive thinning with their locks? You need to know what they want to say about that. And if they say, well, these people have alopecia and they're genetically and all this stuff, you need to say for those people who do not have alopecia and whose dermatologists have determined that they do not have alopecia, what is it about the Sisterlocks routine maintenance that could be contributing to it? Okay, because I can guarantee you it's not your failure to band your hair. It's not your washing cycle. And it sure isn't your inability to wear a satin cap at night that's causing the hair to start to thin out. All right, my premise is that too frequent retightenings, unnecessary retightenings. Some of y'all like to see the grid. I could care less about the grid. In fact, when I get my hair retightened, I hate to see the grid. I like it to look just like this. If my hair could look like this every day and y'all never had to see my parts, I would be happy. I'm quite satisfied with not seeing all this. Some people like to see the parts, like they have individual box braids. Some locticians like to tighten all the way down to the scalp, so tight that when you go home, your head hurts for several hours or even days after you've had your retightening. Some of them have to meet such a rigid schedule for the retightening cycle via appointment that they need to get your hair retightened between 3 and 4 hours or somewhere within the 3 to 5 hour window, which means depending upon the number of locks you have, they're moving very quickly through the hair. And as they're moving very quickly through the hair, your hair is breaking and it's being torn. And your hair's ability to revamp itself and to recycle and to start another growth phase can continue for a while. But when those strands continue to put pressure on the follicles and that hair is popping out as they're raking that tool through, you can't tell me that that's not a problem. And you can't tell me that that's not something that needs to be discussed in the Sisterlocks circle, especially when you consider the fact that we're getting these doggone locks usually for a lifestyle and we plan to have them until we can't have them anymore, right? So we're talking about the frequency. How often are you getting your hair locked? And if you're being told you need to do it every 4 to 6 weeks, that's ludicrous. If you're being told you need to do it every 5 to 7 weeks, you got to ask yourself, is that more for the convenience of my loctician consultant, or is that what my hair really needs? And then you got to ask yourself, well, even if they think that that's what I need, in the long run, would I rather have a few locks unmarried that I can gently pull apart, okay? Or would I rather be dealing with massive hair loss across my head? Something is going on here that we need to consider. So the frequency is a real issue. The quality of the retightening. Is it too tight to my scalp, as I mentioned before? How fast is the retightening happening? When I go in, have I taken the time to separate these locks so that my loctician doesn't have to do it? Because when I do it, I can be a lot more gentle. When she does it, she's speeding through, and y'all, come on. Come on. You've done hair before. You know that certain times when you're doing hair, it doesn't matter. You go ahead and rake through, or the part is not actually perfect, but you keep moving, or you combine a lock or two. Or maybe, you're willing to pull it apart because it's one tiny little piece of hair in thousands. My point is, who's going to care for your hair more than you do? You find me somebody who's going to care for your hair more than you do. And I'm going to find you an extraordinary human being. So we have to begin to bring this to their attention. I think you're moving a little fast. Okay, now we know this all has to do with cost, and maybe it comes down to I'll pay you for an extra half an hour if you go slower, but the real issue comes down to them having to make adjustments to do what is righteous for the client's hair, and recognizing that as you're moving through that fast, if you don't take your time, you could be possibly causing hair loss down the road. If the hair is not properly detangled, if you're heavy-handed, you have heard when the hair is being pulled through, you hear it rake through. If you listen and pay attention, you hear the hair coming through like a piece of yarn, right? So that's friction. Friction that's unavoidable, all right? But friction nevertheless that can be minimized. So how gently is going through, how fast is going through, these are all things we have to pay attention to, because the continued rate at which we do it, most of us are getting these retightenings done at least 6 times every year. That's very often. So these are things that we have to really, really look at. We have to be willing to dialogue about this, and we got to start paying attention to the hair loss. Where's the hair loss happening at the most? Is it at the front of your head? There are a few sisters who are having a lot of hair loss right here. These typically are high stress areas even when you don't have locks. This is a high stress area around the back even when you don't have locks, because this is where a lot more friction is. This is where people are pulling their hair up and so forth and so on. So where is it happening? A lot of times in the center where your hair is the densest, that's where the heavy-handedness is happening more than others. If your loctician is doing your hair and you can't feel a change in pressure as they move to more sensitive areas of your hair, and the retightening is happening as fast and with as much pressure up here as is happening here, you have a problem. Because these are even more tender areas. These are more manipulated areas, even when you're shampooing. So these are things we have to start to talk about. You have to start to ask your loctician about this. You have to ask her, what do you think is the cause of excessive thinning with people that have had Sisterlocks for a long time when they don't have alopecia, genetic alopecia? I forget the name of it, or the type of alopecia that is attributed to something else other than what they're doing with their hair. You have to start asking these. You have to open the dialogue up. You have to get them to explore, what might this be about? And what do you think might be some things that we can do to keep that from happening in my situation? Okay, because this is something, y'all, this is so serious. And like I said, by the time you start experiencing hair loss, it's kind of late in the game. And you know that trauma in a certain part of your hair, just because you start to treat it differently, doesn't always guarantee that that hair growth is going to come back the way it was before you started losing the hair. So be willing to consider the frequency you're getting the reties, the tightness of the reties, and how close the rotations are to your scalp. Any soreness or if you're sore, you've had some trauma. You know, when you work out in the gym and you tear muscle, you're sore the next day because it has to repair itself, right? If you're not sore, you haven't done enough. You didn't stretch the muscle, you didn't tear it, right? Hair is the same way. Anything that bruises, anything that's sore has been broken. It's been traumatized, right? You got to use your common sense. So you got to go by that. Is it sore? Okay? My grid, You know, those of you who crazy about the grid, is my grid like, what does my grid look like? Is my grid and the beauty of my grid going to cost me my hairline a few years down the road? The speed. Okay, start paying attention to how fast your loctician is moving through your hair. You might have to add a little extra time, which means you might have to add another 25 to 30 or 40 bucks. You got to ask yourself, what is it worth? And then at the end of the day, you got to say, if I have to retighten my own hair and it takes me 12 hours over a period of 3 days, but I can ensure very little trauma to my hair because I'm moving through so gently and so slowly, what's it worth to me? So these are things I want you to consider. Please leave a comment. Let me know what your experience has been, either with someone that you know who's experienced hair loss. Look at those people or inquire of those people who have had locks for a short amount of time as well as a longer amount of time. Consider your relationship to the retightenings. Consider your relationship to the soreness, to the speed at which your hair is being done. Look at all of those things and comment for me what your feeling is about this particular topic, because I'm telling you, I'm convinced that we have something to talk about, and I think we need to really start talking about it, because at the end of the day, y'all, the price, the shampoo, the Miracle Grow stuff, all of this other stuff we talk about on this channel, it doesn't mean a hill of beans if at the end of the day you start losing your hair and your hair is not growing back, or you start losing your hair, you lose all your locks, and then you have to start all over again. That's very serious. By the way, if that does happen and you start losing your locks, consider saving those locks and having them reattached. That's something that's worth considering. I know if that were to happen to me, I would save all my locks and I would have them reattached, which you can definitely do while your hair is regrowing. But just think about these things, y'all. This is food for thought. I'm going to be doing more research in this area and seeing what I can come up with. I've had too many requests about this. I've had people on the street ask me about it out of the blue, about the thinning. I've seen people in my travels with the Sisterlocks, and this is not to say it doesn't happen with other locks too, but the fact that it does happen with other locks is enough for us to extrapolate and say, okay, if this control group is experiencing it, and then what, if anything at all, would keep or prevent this control group from experiencing the same thing. So we're talking about just dialoguing about stuff that's really important. Let me know what you think, please. I hope to hear from you. Thank you again to our beautiful sisters who've been so kind to share pictures. For those of you who are experiencing hair loss, please go to my Hidayah Reiki website in the description. Send me an email with some pictures that you don't mind me sharing on the channel. We would love to see what hair loss looks like to you and to hear about your story. I would greatly appreciate it. Much love to all of you all. I hope that you have a peaceful, productive, and prosperous day wherever you are in your day. Thank you for spending this little bit of time with me. Much love to you.